Friends, in the last video, we learnt about cosets, Lagrange's theorem, its properties and its uses. Today, in this video, we will learn about external direct product of groups. Basically, so far we have learned about groups and its subgroups, and we have dealt with only a single group at a time. Now, in external direct product, we will deal with multiple groups at a time. So let's see how we deal with multiple groups simultaneously and what is the operation. Certainly, since we are talking of groups, the entire series is based on groups. This will again be related to group, and we will the resultant entity will be a group. But then we will also learn what are the operations, how it is denoted, how it is written. So without wasting much time, let's start with what is external direct product. Okay. So now, what is an external direct product? Let G1, G2, Gn be a collection of groups. Then the external direct product written as G1 plus G2 plus G3 plus so on up to Gn. Alright, so is a set of all n tuples in which ith component is an element of Gn. Alright, so let G1, G2 so on up till Gn be a collection of groups. Then external direct product, collection of finite number of groups. Again, this is very important. Let G1, G2 so on up till Gn be a collection of finite number of groups. Then the external direct product written as G1 plus G2 plus G3 so on up till Gn is a set of all n tuples in which ith component is an element of Gi, and the operation is component wise. Okay. So how will an element of this group look like? It is a collection of n tuples such that Gi belongs to Gi. Okay, and the operation is component wise. So for example, if there are two elements G1, G2 so on up till Gn and G1 dash, G2 dash so on up till Gn dash, what is the operation? It is component wise. I mean to say, by component wise saying that now G1 dash belongs to G1, G1 belongs to G1. So this is basically when we multiply the product of two elements of this direct product is the product of individual elements. By product we mean that this operation is not a simple multiplication or a direct product. It's rather an operation of the binary operation of G1. Okay. So the operation here is that of G2. The operation here is that of Gn. Alright. So this is how we define an external direct product. Okay. So we have already learned in our high school about R2 and R3. This can be written as R direct product R, and this can be written as R direct product R direct product R. And how will be the elements? We know that, okay, let's remove this. So we have learned in our high school about R2. How does the element of R2 look like? In a plane, it will be of the form AB, which is a two tuple. So we can write R plus R. And similarly, we have R3, which is R plus R plus R. So an element in this will look like something of the form 1, 2. It is a two tuple. Similarly, it is 1, 2, 3. This is in the XY plane. This is 2D and this is 3D. This is the Z axis. Y axis, or we could have said this is the X axis, this is the Y axis, and this is the Z axis in this case. Alright, so this is how we define the external direct product of finite collection of groups. Now let us take some examples of direct products and find out the elements of direct products. So let's take an example of U8 plus U10. Okay. So what is U8? Let's calculate the values of U8. 1, 3, 5, 7. And U10 will be 1, 3, 7, 9. Okay, so the elements will be 1, 1, 1, 3. Note that the order of the elements is important. Okay. Similarly, we have 3, 1, 3, 3, 3, 7, 3, 9, and so on. So now let's calculate 3, 7 into 7, 9. Okay. So what is, I told you that when we calculate the product of elements of an external direct product, the operation is component wise. So 3.7, first component into first component, second component into second component. Okay. So now this operation is multiplication modulo 8. And this operation is multiplication modulo 10. Alright, so this is 5 and this is 63 mod 10, 3. So this is the value. Similarly, let's find out Z2 plus Z3. Now Z2 is 0, 1 and Z3 is 0, 1 and 2. Alright. So what are the values of Z2 plus Z3? These will be 2 into 3. 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2 and then 1, 0, 1, 1 and 1, 2. These are the elements of Z2 plus Z3. Now, order of this is 6. Okay. And let's note one important thing in this is that 1, 1 is a generator of Z2 plus Z3. Like 1 is a generator of Z2 and 1 is a generator of Z3. Okay. So we can write any element, say H comma K, as 1 into H and 1 into K. Okay. So 1, 1 is a generator of Z2 plus Z3. Now in one of the earlier theorems that we did in one of the videos, I think in isomorphisms, we learned in isomorphisms that any group, any finite group of order n is isomorphic to, any finite cyclic group of order n is isomorphic to Zn. Okay. So now you will say that, now since this is a generator, and we will also prove that the external direct product is a group, and there's not much to prove in that. This is for now, let's assume that this is a group, and we have already proved that this is cyclic. So any cyclic, finite cyclic group of order 6 is isomorphic to Z6. So Z2 plus Z3 is isomorphic to Z6. Now you will say that, I mean, by this example, we may or may not conclude Z2 direct product Z2 is isomorphic to Z4, but which is not true. Isomorphism, actually it's exactly same behavior on the two sides. Okay, if there are, say, we can prove that this is not isomorphic to Z4 because let's calculate elements of Z2 as well and Z4. Z4 is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, order of 0 is 1. Order of 1 is 1. It's 4. Order of 2 is 2. because 2 square is 4 and which is equal to 0. Again 1 power 4 is 4 which is again equal to 0, and again order of 3 is 3 power 3 square is 9, 3 cube is 27. So order of 3 power 1 is 3. 3 square is 9 which is 1. Three power 0 is 1, 3 power 1 is 3, 3 power 9 modulo 4 which is 1, 3 power 3 is 3. Sorry, 3 power 3 is, again what mistake we are doing here is, this is again a mistake that we are doing. This is 3 square is not 9, this is 6. Okay, so this was a mistake that I was also doing here. 3 square is 3 plus 3 modulo 4, not 3 into 3 modulo 4. This is 2. 3 cube is 9 modulo 4 which is 1. 3 power 4 is 12 modulo 4 which is 0. So order of 3 is 4. Again order of 2 was 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 power 4 is 4. Okay, so since the operation is addition modulo 4. Okay. Since the operation is addition modulo 4, so we have calculated orders of its elements. Okay. Similarly, the order of 0 is 1 and order of 1 is 2. Okay. So, by isomorphism, and let's calculate Z2 direct product Z2 now. Let's write down corresponding orders. 1, 4, 2, 4. Okay. So I have written corresponding orders also, so that we are able to compare. Now let us write down the elements of Z2 direct product Z2, which is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2 and 0, 3. And again 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2 and 1, 3. Now let's calculate orders of these elements. This is 4. Alright. This is again order of, we will again come to conclusion how the order of direct products are calculated, but for now let's know that the order of the element in an external direct product is LCM of the individual orders. LCM of orders of the individual components. Now, if order of 0 is 1 and this order is 4. So, what will be the order? Again, this will be 4. Now, since this order is 4, 4 and 2. Now we have 4 and 4. Again 4. Now this is, again we don't need to go further. How many elements of order 4 are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. At least 4 elements are there, and here we have only 2 elements. So to prove that any two groups are not isomorphic, one of the methods is calculate the orders of the elements. Okay, so if here you have say x1 number of elements in group G1, x1 number of elements for order D, and G2 contains x2 number of elements of order D, then clearly these are not isomorphic, because isomorphism maintains orders of the elements. Now if at all there is an isomorphism phi, for all these elements the order of phi x will be same, and at least there will be these many number of elements with order this. Okay, and rather this is exactly the same. If they are different, then they are not isomorphic. Okay, so clearly Z2 plus Z2 and Z4 do not have same number of elements of order 4, so we can say that they are not isomorphic. But we saw that Z2 plus Z3 was isomorphic to Z6. Okay, so now before moving ahead, let's quickly prove that the external direct products of groups is a group itself. There's not much to be proved in this, but let's still go through the steps quickly. Now if G1, this is the external direct product of a finite collection of groups. Now this is written as this. Okay. If this is written as this, what is the identity element? Operation is component wise. Now if EI is an element of GI, EI is identity of GI. Okay. This is identity. Then E1, E2, comma, so on up to En. This is the identity element. Okay. Now you can perform the operation, because any operation done with this, what will you write it as? G1 into E1, so on up till Gn into En is equals to G1, G2, so on up till Gn. Alright. So this is how we multiply the elements written in external direct product form. Okay, and to find out the inverse of an element, after finding out the identity, let's find out the inverse. For any element this in G, we have an inverse, G1 inverse, G2 inverse, because every GI is a group, so every element, every small GI belonging to this capital GI group will have an inverse. This is an inverse for this element. Now if you multiply, left multiply or right multiply by this, you will get G1, G1 inverse, comma, G2, G2 inverse, so on up till Gn, Gn inverse. Alright, so this is E1, E2, so on up till En. Okay, so this is existence of identity, existence of inverse, non-empty, clearly because each of these is non-empty, each of these groups contains at least one element, so we can write down at least one element using these groups. Okay, which is present in the external direct product. Now we have proved that it is non-empty, it is identity exists, inverse exists for each element. Then we have already proved associativity. There's nothing to prove in associativity because each of these groups has each of these elements follows associativity under their respective groups. So if you are writing G1, G2, so on. Say if G1, G1 dash and G1 double dash, if these are three elements in G1 and we are multiplying, if this is the form of external direct product, obviously for each tuple, for each component associativity follows because the operation is component wise. Okay. So associativity is very straightforward, and again I think we have proved each of the axioms. So this is external direct product is itself a group. Then we already took two examples, Z2 direct product Z3 and U8 direct product U10. Now in one of the examples just now, while calculating orders of the elements in Z2 direct product Z2, I told you the formula for the order of an element in an external direct product. So the order of, since we have defined a group, we know the type of elements. Now it's time to find out the order of those elements. Okay, so the order of an element of an external direct product of a finite number of finite groups is LCM of least common multiple of the orders of the individual components. Alright. Now if this is an element G1, G2 so on up to Gn, if this is an element in an external direct product, then its order will be LCM of order of G1, comma, order of G2, comma, so on up to Gn. Again, its proof is not at all difficult, but let's try and prove it here. Okay. So let's say that it is K. Its value LCM is K. Okay. And let's write it. Its value is T. Okay, we will prove that T is equals to K. I have assumed that this order of this element is T. Whatever is the order, it is finite, because see, this is very important. The order of an element of an external direct product of a finite number of finite groups. What does it mean? First of all, this collection has to be finite. It cannot be infinite. Okay. Secondly, each of these groups has to be finite. That is why we are able to take order of each component in this formula. Okay, so that is why we are saying that it should be an external direct product of a finite number of finite groups. Okay, so clearly G1, since T is order of this element, this will be equal to G1 power T. Operation is component wise. G1 into G1 into G1 so on up to T times will be G1 power G. Gn power T. Okay. So this has to be equal to identity. Okay. Even if I am writing the index, it means it is identity of that particular group. E1 is identity of G1, E2 is identity of G2, so on. Similar. Okay. So this implies if we compare the components, if we compare the tuples, we get G1 power T is E1, G2 power T is E2, G3 power T is E3, so on. Now, since T is order of each of these elements, and let us assume that order of Gi is Mi. Alright? Order of G1 is M1, order of G2 is M2, order of G3 is M3. Now, if order of Gi is Mi and Gi power T is identity, this implies Mi divides T for every I from 1 to n. Okay? I'm assuming that order of Gi is Mi. Okay? So this value is M1, this value is M2. It's easier to write. Just that. So Mi divides T for each I from 1 to n. Alright? So each of these individual components M1, M2, so on up till Mn divides T. This implies LCM of these also divides, because that's the least common multiple. Okay? Max to max, what is possible? T is even greater than M1, M2 and so on up till Mn. Okay? So, since Mi divides each of these elements divides Mt. So, M1 divides T, T is a multiple of M1, T is a multiple of M2. So, it's basically divisible by this. Okay? This implies K divides T. Also, G1, G2, so on up till Gn power K. This is G1K, G2K, so on up till Gnk. Okay? Since K is LCM of this, K is equals to LCM of M1, so on up till Mn. So M1 divides K, M2 divides K. Okay? So on up till Mn divides K. So since order of G1 is M1 and M1 divides K, therefore this is identity. Okay? So this is identity. This implies T divides K. Here we had K divides T. Now we have T divides K. Therefore, T is equals to K. Now let's revise the proof. We have an element from external direct product whose value is T. Then we have LCM of individual order of components. Okay. So let's write it as K, and let's write order of each component as M1, M2, Mn. Okay. So here order of G1 is M1, order of G2 is M2, so on. Now if we calculate power T, this element power T, this is G1T, G2T and so on until Gnt. Okay. Now we know that from this it has to be, because it's the order of the element, so it has to be this identity. G1T is even, and so we get Gi in general, Gi power T is identity and order of Gi is Mi. What does it suggest? It suggests that Mi divides T for each I belonging to the set 1 to n, and this implies LCM of Mn, all these elements divides T and K divides T. Now if we calculate power K of this element, this is again, its value is identity. So this implies T divides K, and hence from these two equations T is equals to K. Okay. So therefore the order of an element of an external direct product of a finite number of finite groups is LCM of the orders of individual components. So this theorem is really important because in an external direct product we had already proved that it was a group. It's important to know the order of each element in that group. Alright. Now let's see some examples using this theorem. Z25 direct product Z5, alright. So now let's write down the elements of Z25. This will be 0, 1, 2, so on up till 24, okay. And Z5 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has just 5 elements. Now, if we have to find out elements of order 5, okay. Now if AB belongs to Z25 direct product Z5, now if it is an element of order 5, this implies LCM of order of A and B is 5, okay. So what can be the possibilities? Order of A can be 1, order of B, let's write down like this, order of A, order of B. Let's write down the possibilities, okay. So it can be 1 LCM 5, 5 LCM 1. I think these are the only two possibilities because this is prime. And how many possibilities are there? There's one more possibility. 5 LCM 5 is 5, okay. So how many elements are there in Z25? Now count how many elements of order 1 can be there. It's just 1. In any Zn there is only one element. Now in Z25, how many elements of order 5 are there? This should be equal to 5 of 5. This is from one of the theorems that if D is a divisor of, first of all, D, this order should divide order of this independent group, okay. We know that order of every element by properties of Lagrange's theorem, order of every element divides the order of the group if it's a finite group, okay. That theorem, that property holds only for finite groups. Now first of all it should divide the order. Its order is 25 and its order is 5. So 5 divides 5, we are looking here, okay. So how many elements will be there? This is 5, 5. This is Euler's function, okay. Number of integers from 1 to 5 that are relatively prime to 5, okay. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. There are 4. Again, number of elements of order 5, 4. This is 1. This is 4. This is 4. Now how many possibilities are there? In this case, 4 into 1. B has 4 possibilities, A has 1 possibility. So total possibilities are 4. In this case, B has 1 possibility and A has 4 possibilities. So these total possibilities land up to 4. In this case, A has 4 possibilities, B has 4 possibilities, this is 16, okay. So total number of possibilities is 24. So total number of elements of order 5 turns out to be 24, okay. So this is how we make use of the theorem we just did to find out the order of an element in an external direct product, okay. Let's do one another example. Number of cyclic subgroups of order 10 in Z100 direct product Z25. Alright. So, if at all there is a cyclic subgroup, okay, it will be generated by some element, okay, and that element will have the order same as that of the subgroup itself, okay. So first let's count the number of elements of order 10 and then we'll move on to finding the number of cyclic subgroups of order 10, okay. So we are given that Z100 direct product Z25. Now if AB belongs to this, so LCM of order of A comma order of B has to be 10, okay, because order of we are finding out elements of order 10, okay, and its order, we are assuming that its order is 10, okay. So therefore LCM of this is 10. Now let's find out the possibilities. It can be 1, it can be 10, it can be 10, it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 5, it can be 5, it can be 2, it can be 2, 10, 10, 2, 5, 10, 10, 5, again 10, 10, okay. Now let's ignore the possibilities, eliminate the possibilities. Z25 order is 25. We know that order of every element of a finite group should divide the order of the group itself. 10 divides Z25? No. 1 divides Z25? Fine. 5 divides? Okay. 2 divides? No. So this is gone. And then 10 does not divide Z25. 2 divides? No. 10 does not divide. And 5 divides? And 10 does not divide. This is gone. Only 1 and 5 are left. 2 does not divide 25, 10 does not divide 25, okay. So most of the possibilities are gone. And let's check. Out of these ticks, let's tick mark here also. 10 divides 100? Yes. 2 divides 100? Yes. Come here. 10 divides 100? Yes. So these are the only 3 possibilities. So let's tick mark. Let's tick mark here. Final result is. So we will calculate only for these values. Okay. So number of elements of order 10 is U10. Order of U10, which is 4. 4, and number of elements of order 1 is 1. So 4 into 1, which is 4. Again, number of elements of order 2 is U2, which is 1, and U5, which is again 4. So 1 into 4, which is again 4, and here we have U10, which is 4, and again U5, which is 4. So 4 into 4, 16. So total number of elements of order 10 is 16 plus 4 plus 4, 24. Alright. Then, now after calculating the total number of elements of order 10 in Z100 direct product Z25, we need to find out number of cyclic subgroups of order 10. Okay. Now if there is any subgroup of order 10, it will be generated by a particular element of order 10. Okay. And how many elements can be there in that subgroup of order 10? how many elements of order 10 can be there in that subgroup? That is equal to, again, phi 10, which is Euler's function, number of relatively prime integers less than 10 and greater than 1. So that is 4. In every subgroup, we can have at most 4, rather exactly 4 number of elements of order 10. Why? Because in any group, rather, okay, so the number of elements of order D, if D is a divisor of that group, order of that group, or let's leave, there's a theorem based to which says that in a group, if D is a divisor of in a finite group, if D is a divisor of order of G, then the number of elements of order D will be phi D, which will be which is again, or you can say order of UD, okay, which is basically again equals to phi D. Phi D is a Euler's function which gives you the number of elements less than D and relatively prime to D, okay, starting with 1. So each of these subgroups has 4 number of elements of order 10 in each of these subgroups is 4. So total number of cyclic subgroups will be 24 divided by 4, which is 6. So there are 6 cyclic subgroups of order 10. Okay. So let's move on to the next theorem. The next theorem says, let's study another property of external direct products, which is G plus H is cyclic if and only if order of G and order of H are relatively prime. Given is, we are given that G and H are finite cyclic groups. Okay, so we are given that G and H are finite cyclic groups. Then G and H, G direct product H is cyclic if and only if their orders are relatively prime. Okay, you remember I took one example, Z2 direct product Z3. Now 2 and 3 are relatively prime, because order of Z2 is 2 and order of Z3 is 3, and 2 and 3 are relatively prime, therefore this is isomorphic too. Rather, it is cyclic. We are now basically dealing with relatively, in this particular case we are trying to study the cyclic property of these external direct products. So let's not talk about much about the orders, but let's talk about this is cyclic, this is cyclic. We did that this is isomorphic to Z6, okay, and but Z2 direct product Z2 was not isomorphic to Z4. Had this been isomorphic, we also took the some examples which proved that, some points which proved that this is not isomorphic. So had it been isomorphic, then it would have this result would have been false. Okay, so because 2 and 2 are not relatively prime, its order is 2. This is order of Z2 is 2. 2 and 2 are not relatively prime, so therefore it cannot be cyclic at least. Okay, so we can also find out whether the direct product is isomorphic to some other group by using this property also, because if the resultant is cyclic and this is not cyclic, we are done. Okay, so let's begin with the proof. Let G plus H is cyclic. Okay, now when we say that order of G and order of H is relatively prime, what do we mean by that? If order of G is M and order of H is n. Okay, and G is generator of G, and small h is generator of this subgroup, or say groups. So in this case, what do we mean by relatively prime? It means that GCD of M and N is 1. It means that they should not have any common divisor. Okay, so if they have any common divisor other than 1, 1 obviously divides both of them. 1 divides n, 1 divides n. If they have any common divisor other than 1, then GCD will not be equal to 1. Okay, so we just need to prove that it's 1. Suppose GCD of Mn is not equal to 1 and it's equal to t. Okay, this implies G power m by t comma e. Now the order of this element is t, and order of this element let's write like this. Okay, again t. Okay, so how will you calculate this value? Obviously this is a number because t divides m and t divides n, so this has to be a number. This cannot be a fraction. Okay, so when we write m by t, I mean power t, when we do power t of this element, this will be equal to G m by t into t e2. This cancels, G power m e2. Okay, similarly e1 comma h power n by t, e1 power t, this cancels, e1 h power n. Okay, which is e1 e2. This was equal to e1 e2. Okay, so the order is t, and it cannot be lesser than t because t is the least common divisor of both of them. Okay, so is that possible that there are two elements of order t? Okay, or rather the subgroups generated by these elements, cyclic subgroups generated by these elements now the subgroups generated by these elements also have order t. So there are two subgroups of order t by fundamental theorem of cyclic groups. Okay, we have this we already have this result that there can, if t is a divisor, okay, there cannot be more than one subgroup. There is exactly one subgroup of order t. Okay, so this contradicts, so therefore it has to be okay. So conversely, let's prove the other way around. Conversely, if order of G and order of H are relatively prime, now if G is a generator of capital G and H is a generator of capital H, and order of G is equal to order of capital G is an order of H is equals to order of capital H is equals to n, then I claim that generates, okay, so order of G comma or H is LCM of Mn, okay. Since M and N are relatively prime, they do not have any common divisor, so this is Mn. Also order of G plus H is Mn. We already know that because it has M elements, it has N elements, so its order is Mn. So we have already found an element of order Mn, and hence G plus H is cyclic. So we have proved it other way around also. Okay. So G plus H is cyclic if and only if the orders of the individual groups are relatively prime. And let's extend this theorem to a finite generalized theorem which talks about finite number of groups. And we will not prove that. That can be easily proved using mathematical induction. And G1 plus G2 so on up till Gn is cyclic, or an external direct product G1 direct product so on up till Gn is cyclic if and only if, or an external direct product of a finite number of finite cyclic groups is cyclic if and only if order of Gi is relatively prime to, or GCD of order of Gi comma Gj is 1. It means that relatively prime. Okay. Now another this can be proved using mathematical induction. We have already proved the result for 2 groups, and this is n groups. And another theorem which follows this is in particular, rather it's a corollary, which is if M is equals to N1, N2, so on up to Nk, then Zm is isomorphic to Zn1 direct product, Zn2 direct product, Znk, if and only if Ni is relatively prime to Nj, or GCD of Ni comma Nj is 1 for every I not equal to j. Alright. So how does this follow? Now we know that Zn1 plus Zn2 so on up till Znk will be isomorphic to, is cyclic if and only if Ni and Nj are relatively prime. And now if it is cyclic, double implies this is any finite cyclic group of order n1 into n2 into so on up till nk is isomorphic to this. Now if it is cyclic, then this will be isomorphic to this. So we have already proved that this is isomorphic to this if and only if Ni is relatively prime to Nj for every I not equal to j. So with this theorem, we end our topic of external direct products. So let's quickly revise what we have learned throughout the video. We have learned what is an external direct product of a finite collection of groups, and then we learned about the order of an element in an external direct product of a finite collection of finite groups. Finite connection of finite groups. Finite groups is important because here we are dealing with the order of an element where we are defining order of individual component. Okay, so which is LCM of order of individual components. Okay, then we learned that the property cyclic property of external direct product. When do we when can we say with guarantee that our external direct product will be cyclic, and why do we study it? Basically, our main purpose is to make things easier. Now when we say that G direct product GH is cyclic, okay, so that will be clearly isomorphic to Zn, order of G into order of H, or you can say that Z base order of G into order of H. Okay, so we can and we already know the group Zn, and we do not it's very easy to study basically Zn. Once we know G direct product H is cyclic, we'll make it isomorphic to Zn for some n, and then we'll study Zn. Okay, so after that we I think did this theorem that this is isomorphic to Zn if and only if this Ni and Nj are relatively prime for every I not equal to j. Okay, so this was all about external direct products. Please do keep watching these videos and do not miss even a single video, because that will miss important concepts that we have already dealt through. In every video I come up with the assumption that we have already gone through the previous videos and we know the concepts, theorems and properties that we have learned in the earlier videos. Okay, so because moving ahead, in every video we use results that we have already proved in the last videos. So please do watch out all the videos and stay tuned for upcoming videos. In the next video we'll take up normals, subgroups and factor groups, and stay tuned. Thank you.